Thomas the Hermit here. I am a hermit, a man of prayer. I have a YouTube channel and I also have a Facebook group called The Humble Holy Laity. Anyways, today I'm talking about the abandoned Sacred Heart. And who abandoned them? Well, the Jesuits abandoned the Sacred Heart devotion, and let me show you why. Okay, so there's a little history, and my source is going to be Malachi Martin. This is written in his book, The Jesuits, the Society of Jesus, and the Betrayal of the Roman Catholic Church. Now, Malachi Martin has come under fire by Dr. Marshall. I have called Dr. Marshall out on this and said Malachi Martin is a stand-up guy and that he is a credible source. Now, just recently, Dr. Marshall had to retract a statement that he said about Malachi Martin because it has been proved that there was a ritual abuse in the Vatican associated with one of the cardinals. Now, this has come out recently, and it has again showed that Malachi Martin was telling the truth in Windswept House when he made a fictional account of a ritual abuse, but said that it really had happened. Okay, so again, Malachi Martin is a credible source, and I will keep saying that. If you have not read The Jesuits, the Society of Jesus, and the Betrayal of the Roman Catholic Church, you are missing out on a historical document. Malachi Martin was in the middle of the three popes in question. He was there. He was a Jesuit himself. He saw what was going on in the Jesuit order, and he knew what was going on in the papacies at those times. He recorded it and wrote it in this book in a well-defined. If you want to know what is going on with the Catholic Church in these days and times, you need to read this, because here is a historical document about what has happened, and Malachi Martin does an excellent job. Come on, he was a Jesuit. They do everything excellent. That doesn't mean it's always right, but Malachi Martin is right on. I'll put my name behind Malachi Martin's name. Now let me get on with this. Okay, now this Malachi Martin here is describing the beginnings of the devotion of the Jesuits to the Sacred Heart devotion. It came through a nun of the Visitation Order. Her name was Sister Margaret Mary Aloque. At her convent of Paris, Monial, France, she was the recipient of special divine revelations that began about the year 1670. Hers is one of the relatively rare cases in the history of the Church when the teaching authority of Rome was confirmed, the authenticity of revelation made to a single person. The revelation centered around the love of Jesus has for men and women and the neglect with which that love was treated in return. In the revelation, as a symbol of that love, the physical heart of Jesus was always shown to the nun. Furthermore, in the revelations, God asked her to spread a particular devotion to Jesus under that symbol, so that the faithful by their piety would make reparation for the neglect and ingratitude of the generality. In one of those events that are more than mere chance, a young 34-year-old Jesuit, Claude La Colombière, was posted as chaplain of Paris Le Monial in 1675. He remained only 18 months there, but in that time the nun communicated her revelations to him, and he had confirming revelations of his own in the 6 years that remained to him before he died at the age of 41 in 1681. He successfully conveyed the divine wishes to his superiors and through them to the Roman authorities. Rome accepted the nun's revelations and Claude La Colombière's witness and instituted an annual feast day for the Church Universal with a special Mass and liturgy of prayers for the use of priests on that day. From these simple actions on the part of two obscure people, there flowed a devotion and a fresh aspect of theological thinking about the person of Jesus and his loving redemption of men and women from the lethal effects of sin. From the moment that Rome accepted the authenticity of Alaquet's revelation in the late 17th century, the Jesuits officially enthusiastically accepted the commission to spread this devotion. No image was to take such a hold on the piety and devotion of the ordinary faithful as that which came everywhere to be called the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And no other single ascetic devotion came to be recognized as so typically Jesuit as devotion to the Sacred Heart, the perfect symbol of the Jesuit ideal in personal holiness. The deliberate cultivation of this specifically Jesuit note, personal devotion to Jesus, especially under the image of his Sacred Heart, in the members of the order as they spread out all over the world and worked at the most diverse jobs with different talents, techniques, and results. So there you get it. The beginnings of the Sacred Heart started with Margaret Mary, but in cooperation with a Jesuit priest who conveyed it and then helped to get it approved, and then it became one of the cornerstones of Jesuit devotion and one of the cornerstones of Jesuit apostolate. Now, this particular image of the Sacred Heart ended up in homes everywhere. It became one of the most popular devotions in the Catholic Church by the laity, and it was promulgated through the Jesuits. Okay, so this all starts with the Jesuits beginning to become extremely modernist, okay? And I've really not done anything on modernism yet, but I will. But modernism is basically an intellectual conception that our ideas need to change with the times. So as things evolve in the world, and I'm sure they believe in some sort of evolution, something or other, you know, as things evolve in the world, you know, that our theology needs to change, okay? So they're beginning to think that they don't need the Sacred Heart anymore. And the Father General at the time, his name is Arupe. And Arupe is a very interesting person. I'm not going to go in. You need to buy the book and you can read all about Arupe. He was one of the first, him and his Jesuits, to lend medical aid, believe it or not, after the Hiroshima bomb. So he's a very interesting character, and you can read all about him in Malachi's book. You need to read this book, okay? Now, here's what happened in a letter that Arupe wrote, and I'm going to start off and read this to you. As the year was the centenary of Father General Beck's consecration of the whole society to the Sacred Heart of Jesus, Arupe planned a centenary celebration. But when he broached the subject by word of mouth and in letters with the other superiors and leading Jesuits in Rome and elsewhere, he found, as surely he must already have realized, at least dimly, that Jesuits on the whole and in their majority had simply lost interest in devotion to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. Some regarded it as a childish, primitive, unsophisticated, repellent, unworthy of a modern mind. Some found it even gross and sensuous. Some others had decided that the modern mind could not accept such a devotion, though they themselves saw some merit in it for very simple people, little children, peasants, and such. Still others allegedly theological difficulties. Few saw any connection between this devotion and the Ignatian character of the Jesuits. In sum, Arupe could not find a commonly shared persuasion any longer among his Jesuits that the society had a divine commission from Christ through St. Margaret Mary Alaquet and the Holy See to propagate this devotion. There you have it. The state of the Jesuits, I would say, this is in the late 60s. You know, they began thinking this way in the late 60s, you know, and we know that their arrogance has increased since. So the abandonment of the Jesuits of the Sacred Heart devotion, I think has created a particular issue. Now, this hermit, who is in no way up to the intelligence of a Jesuit priest, has discovered something that the Jesuits did not know, that the Sacred Heart image might be one of the most single important images to be used by the laity so that they can learn how to pray contemplative prayer. Can you imagine that? And this hermit has been looking for at least 4 years for a Catholic symbol that would work well in teaching the laity to learn contemplative prayer. And lo and behold, it was the Sacred Heart. And to be honest with you, I was never attracted to the Sacred Heart. I'm almost as bad as the Jesuits, except I've had a eureka moment, okay? And I have learned the wisdom of the Sacred Heart. And the wisdom of the Sacred Heart is it is the single image within the Catholic Church that you can meditate upon that will have the focus of only one thing, the heart. And I didn't know that before. But because of that, it makes it a most excellent symbol for contemplative prayer. Not only am I saying that, and not only am I challenging the Jesuits, the geniuses of our church, that they missed something very vital. I'm actually doing an experiment in the humble holy laity to try to discover if what I believe to be true is true. And so I've asked the members of the humble holy laity, which is about a membership of about 130 people, if they can participate in an experiment, prayer experiment, to see if this symbol actually does help the laity into mystical contemplation. This is Thomas the Hermit. I'm letting you know that I have challenged the Jesuits. I have seen the error of their ways. I've even seen the error of my own ways. And I am running an experiment. And I will get back to you and I will let you know the results of that in probably a couple of weeks. By then I should have enough of a sampling of people to say whether or not this is truly a tool for the laity to learn contemplative prayer. This is Thomas the Hermit. Say a prayer for me. I am praying for you. Pray for one another. We are still building up that fortress of prayer, and I will talk to you later.